Okay, how you doing? Good evening. Welcome to the Sports Therapy Association podcast, episode 72. Okay, we are getting there. I promised that by the time we get to Therapy Expo, November 24th and 5th, it should be episode 77, unless I've miscounted it. But yeah, we're on our way there. So episode 72 weeks of clinical gold, which is what I'll be talking about at Therapy Expo if you want to join us in the STA Theatre. But tonight, we're very excited. Before I thank last week's speaker, just to let you know what's coming up and who's coming up, it's going to be Poora Singh, who has been lead osteopath for athletics team GB, has got loads of experience at Tokyo to share with us of working with elites, plus various football clubs, including Aston Villa and Everton and Birmingham. And I'm talking like I know something about football here, and everyone who knows me knows I don't. But yeah, and also golf, PGA European Tour. So yeah, absolutely fantastic source of information for working with elites. So we're going to be talking about that, similarities of working with recreational. We're going to be talking about job titles. Osteopath he is by trade, but he employs different professions, and he seems very, very knowledgeable in differences and similarities and how we shouldn't compare sports therapists and physios. We have a little chat about that off air. And yeah, it's going to be a great episode. So stick around with us. And as always, if you've got any questions or comments, then if you're joining us live, just stick them in the comments, whether you're on YouTube or on the Sports Therapy Association Facebook page, and we'll see them and pick them up. But before we get into that, then I just want to thank again Dr. Fiona Higgs from last week. We had a Facebook, I'm going to blame it on Facebook. It was a couple of days after the outage, wasn't it? So we did lose the Facebook feed after about 20 minutes, which was such a shame. It was a real shame because the episode was all about encouraging women to speak up. And we went down some really interesting discussions about why, for example, it all evolved around this UTMB Ultra Trail Mont Blanc organization saying that in future in their races, painkillers of all type won't be allowed before 24 hours leading up and during the race, in good cause, with the idea that the research is pretty solid, that it can cause a lot of issues if you're abusing long-term ibuprofen and that sort of thing during racing, because your body needs that natural inflammation and kind of repair, and if you're stopping that, then it can lead into terrible problems. And we've seen some tragic cases which are kind of related to the overabuse of NSAIDs and other kind of sports products. But it was interesting that decision was made. It was like, well, how come there are no women organizers in here who would have gone, well, hold on, how about all the women who couldn't even get to the start line if it wasn't for using NSAIDs, for example, for menstrual pain, which is a big thing. And also all the other disabilities which rely on painkillers to be able to participate and give this diverse population to participate in sports. So it was a really interesting episode, and it was a pleasure having Fiona back as a guest. And if you haven't listened to it yet, then check it out on your favorite podcast app, or if you want to watch us on video, then you can go to YouTube or the Sports Therapy Association webpage. It's all on there. And I've encouraged people, I always do, but if you listen to anything on there, particularly if you're a female therapist or athlete, if you've got any feedback and you want to get involved and got any questions, then do send an email to either myself or Fiona. Our email addresses are in the show notes, and yeah, keep that conversation going. We've got lots of ideas on the forefront to try to create more of a stage and encourage and give confidence to female therapists to stand up and talk and chat. So yeah, do let us know if you're interested in participating or being a guest or a guest presenter or something on one of our coffee mornings. We kind of want to increase the platform. So there we go. Right. I think that is it for all the thanks. If you are interested in Fiona's workshops coming up, then go to move-well.co.uk. We talked about her biomechanics online courses, and also a fantastic selection of workshops to do with making presentations, understanding research. What else do we have? Look at my crib sheet, because there's so much quality stuff there. How to read scientific journals, delivering an online workshop, all the CPD, which I kind of say, this is exactly what will help your business. Don't worry too much about that latest acronym and technique you can do with your hands. This is the business stuff coming from Dr. Fiona Higgs. So definitely check out her website for details of all of that. There we go. I think I can go through that. Right. So tonight, like I say, we have the pleasure of spending just under an hour with Poora Singh. And if you have questions, then make sure you just fire them, whether on YouTube or the Sports Therapy Association podcast, Facebook page, and do bring them up. Right. Talking of that, I'm going to bring up the gentleman himself. Hello, mate. How you doing?
Very good, mate. How are you?
I'm good. Sorry to keep you down there in our dark, cold lobby for so long.
It's freezing.
I know, that's what Fiona said. A little scurrying of rats around there, and yeah, I know. But yeah, pleasure to have you here, mate. Really, really appreciate you giving us your time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So mashing. It's interesting because I've never met you face to face before. I believe you spoke at Therapy Expo a couple of years ago. Were you involved?
Yeah, we did. Me and a friend of mine, Mike Grice. We did
Mike,
like
well.
some talks and we did some demonstration of some trackside therapy stuff we were doing with elite athletes, and so we did like one of those outside the kind of room kind of demonstrations to a whole bunch of people. It was really good, really good. It was fresh for me to do. And just show people because people want to know, what do you do with these guys that run sub 10? What do you do that's different to what I do? To Dave, who wants to run, a 15-second 100 meters.
You mentioned Mike Grice, and that kind of made me think, because I'd love to quote wherever I saw it. Let's see, it said, positioned himself as the #1 sports osteopath in the Midlands. I've seen that kind of flashing around the internet a little bit. I'm not sure
Mike can't argue with that. Mike can't argue with that. There's no osteopaths that can argue with that. We don't argue each other. We all love each other. So like, we're all good.
Checking if Mike is down here in the people who joined us yet. We'll come back.
I think I wouldn't argue with Rosie over it though. Rosie Sexton. Yeah, I wouldn't argue with her though.
Really? Yeah.
She's pretty handy on a mat. She was a fantastic fighter.
Fantastic. So, yeah. Good stuff. So, but yeah, you have been around a while. Not saying you're old, but you've certainly. How many years are we talking about since you?
21 years this year in practice.
Amazing. Yeah, incredible.
21 years, and it's gone by so quick.
Yeah. And I mentioned before, I'm sorry about my pure absence of knowledge of football. But yeah, you're very involved in Birmingham City Football Club. I can't even remember if it was a city or not. Birmingham City Football Club. For how many years? That's over a decade.
Birmingham City, I've been with them for about 14 years now. 14 years, wow. Birmingham City. Then we've got Aston Villa for the last 4 or 5. But in between that, I've done like stuff for Sheffield United, Crystal Palace, players from Manchester and stuff. And then I've done, and then now just recently we've just started with Everton. So just providing osteopathic services, providing an osteopathic input into their management, their elite management, first team.
And then the golf as well.
Yeah, golf. So I've been on the European Tour since 2008. So 2008 was my first European Tour event. Kind of really strangely got involved with golf. I was mainly heavily in athletics, mainly with sprints. And then how that came about, I got asked to work at a sports medicine clinic in Lichfield, and I went I went to just have a look at it. And then while I was there, I kind of met a chap that was there and had a good long chat to him. We all had a cup of tea. Didn't even realize who he was. Just had an open chat about what I thought about elite sport, what I thought about where the sport world is, and this that, and therapy and S&C and conditioning and all that kind of stuff. And then he just said that, what, this could be brilliant, like for something we could use on the European Tour, and then kind of introduced himself, and he was the chief medical officer for the European Tour. So then he said that they were looking for an osteo, and I should apply. So I applied, went down there, had a chat with them, and showed my ideas of what I thought an elite program should look like, and that was it. And then got on tour and have been there ever since. And now Challenge Tour, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got 4 osteopaths. We've got a physio. We've got a sports medicine doctor. We've got a nutritionist. We've got an S&C coach. We've got full an MDT, kind of like sports medicine and health and well-being set up for Challenge Tour. So it really sets up the players really good before getting onto the main tour, European Tour. And it's osteo-led, it's osteopath-led, and I'm a massive advocate of osteopathy and what it can do in sport, and I'm a massive osteopath. I've told you, we spoke earlier about manual therapy and hands-on and all that sort of stuff, and I'm a massive advocate for all of it. I think it's fantastic, and it's got a really good place to be used.
In your 20 odd years of getting to where you've got now, of working with so many kind of elites and being in those
Thank you,
circles.
Fiona.
Fiona's just said there, if people listen to the podcast, Fiona Higgs, guest from last week, has said, Poора's teaching on Mike Grice's movement therapy education elite trackside therapy day is excellent. Thanks, Fiona.
Thank
Good
you.
to see you in the house as well. Really enjoyed last week, Fiona. Again, thank you so much. It was a great episode. Do you ever kind of stop and think, you said it's gone really quickly, but do you think, how the hell did I end up here sometimes? How did I get to be with Athletics Team GB? When did that happen?
Yeah, I think, I think there's, I'm a massive believer in kind of like, you tend to follow the flow of the river, isn't it? You tend to follow where things are going. And, most people, I like to do what I like to do. And so if I was doing a job or if I was working somewhere, I was like, I'm not in this and I'm not getting the right sort of fulfillment from this, then I wasn't involved. And so I really liked sport. I really really kind of got into sport. And right at the beginning, 2001, I think I saw my first kind of GB sprinters as a really fresh therapist. And so I did not know what I was doing. And I was like, like, let's just try what I think I should be doing. And it worked really well. And then I kind of got really more interested into it. And I just said that, I should go down to the track and have a look at what these guys actually do. So I took my time out, went down to the track at the Birchfield and sat down and just watched, and then spoke to some of the coaches and tried to get an understanding of what they were looking for. And then thought to myself, well, how can I add to that? How can I get them to where they want to be with the skill set that I have? And that's how I kind of used my osteopathy. So what I do in terms of an osteopathic treatment is very different to what a traditional osteopath will do. I do use a lot of myofascial techniques. I do use a lot of deep tissue techniques. I do use a lot of MET. I do use a lot of all of the adjuncts of manual therapy to get a tissue change that I'm looking for. But I do it in an osteopathic context. So I will treat the whole body, not just the symptom. I will treat everything. And I'll, put in parts of nutrition, parts of S&C. I've done a lot of stuff with the UK SCA and I have a decent understanding of strength and conditioning. I know what my limitations are. So, I would be able to, rehab someone to a certain extent. But if we're talking elite level, I would need one of my colleagues, one of the guys who are elite level S&C coaches to take over. And I'd quite happily hand over the athlete to them because I trust them.
Fantastic.
And so I think getting involved in that, and you just move with it, don't you? And then somebody offers you, say, look, like if someone sees you from outside and says, actually, your skill set is what we're looking for. Have you ever fancied doing this? And you just go and follow it and you do it.
Does that take, are you naturally quite a confident person when it comes to networking? You said, like, I just walked up and told him what I do. And have you got a natural confidence, like you say?
I think that is definitely part of it. Like I'm confident without an ego. So I let my hands do the talking. So I say, well, I'm an osteo and this is what I can do. And this is, let me have a look at it. And then I treat the patient or I treat the athlete and let the athlete talk to the coach and say, wow, this is how I feel. And then I let them kind of perceive and get from it what they think that they're getting. But I certainly don't shy away. If there's a room of physios and I walk in and I'm the only osteopath there, I don't shy away. No, we've done the education, we've got the degree, we've got an understanding and a skill set, and certainly you can add to it. So you need to be very strong, confident, and good at your art. And if I quote from some of the stuff I mentor the lads that work for me, the girls that work for me. I mentor them, and I'm a massive believer in don't lie. If you don't know, say you don't know. You're dealing with somebody who's injured, who's vulnerable, who's looking for a solution. If you do not know, there is no skin off your nose to say, actually, I don't know, but I do know somebody that might know, so I'm going to send you for a second opinion. Mm-hmm. So then in that way, you're doing the best you can for that patient. And guess what? If that person that you send them to actually finds a solution, you've done some learning. You're like, okay, I'll look for that next time.
Excellent. Great bit of advice. I'm going to ask you for two more in a second, so start thinking, because that's going to be the question. Becky Carroll says, yes, Poora, with hands up. We've already got a double high five from Becky, so things are looking shining up. You thought you'd done everything and reached your limits, but look, you've now got Becky's double hand up as well. So thanks, Becky. Yeah, so I mean, I'm really interested because you mentioned that if you're the only osteo in a room for physios, has that happened before? Have you seen much kind of, doors closed in your face potentially because other professionals going, who are you?
No, I don't
Was
think
it from your head?
No. I don't think I've had doors closed in my face. I have. I've had situations where I've walked in and I'm the only osteo in a room of maybe 25 physios. And I've had I'm an osteopath, and I've had a couple of them have a bit of a funny face and a bit of a sneer and a bit of this and a bit of that. But this was many years ago. So we're talking 2001, 2002, when, osteopaths were seen as like, tree huggers, crystal wavers, kind of like, like on the real fringe of primary healthcare. So, and I was quite happy to take that sneer and stuff and just say, right, okay, guys, let's have a talk. Let's have a talk about what you guys do. Let's have a talk about what I do. And let's have a look at how you would deal with something and how I would deal with something. And then if there's somebody who's willing to be a body, let's see who can do what to who. Right? And
again, it's confidence.
It's confidence,
Were you like that as a kid? Have you always had confidence? What's the secret? Because a lot of people aren't. You're saying things like, you're the single one out. You're the kind of only person there who's an osteopath. And for a lot of sport, I say this because we've talked about this a lot on the show with sports therapists. If you're in a room with physios, the worst things, that's the worst. That's like a nightmare for sports therapists or sports massage therapists, because they always think I'm not a physio. We always set it as like a pedestal, and there's already that imposter syndrome. But
okay. Let me, if we're going to go down this avenue, let me be very, very clear, right?
Okay.
I employ a sports therapist at my clinic. I have massive respect for sports therapy because I've looked at the degree, I've seen what you learn, and you learn more rehab work than an osteopath does. You learn more about sports nutrition and the way around working with sports people than osteopaths do. Okay, we do 5 years. We do a lot more orthopedics. We do a lot more kind of medically given stuff. But, I know what I would use a sports therapist for because I have experience of sports therapy and I understand what they would do. So if I had a patient in, let's say, for example, and they had a grade 2C hamstring, and I had done the work that I needed to do to get their back loose and their hip loose and, all the kinematics of what I wanted loose, good. But then I needed somebody to rehab their hamstring. I would quite happily hand it over to a sports therapist, quite happily, and say, guys, can you do like a 6-week program with them, please? And I think if sports therapy is going to grow, then you need to take ownership of what your knowledge is and take ownership of what you learn and have some respect and kind of some oomph for yourself. Like even if you walk into a room with physios, all right, they train for 3 years, they go and they work in the hospitals, they do a lot more work in ICU, pediatrics, gynae, they do a lot more medically driven stuff, but you'd be surprised how many of them do a minimal sports related stuff. You'd be surprised. A lot of them don't do it a lot. And it's all about choices. Some don't want to do it. Some want to work with geriatrics. Some want to work in peds. Some want to work in neurology. You've got a basic knowledge by doing your degree, which gives you the right and to have a voice. And you don't feel small or inconsiderate or whatever or beneath or less than anybody because of their profession. I've met some really, really, really stupid doctors. I've met some really ignorant medical doctors, like who you would think that, wow, you've done 10 years medical school, you've done this, you've done that, you've done this, you've done that. But they just have no idea about MSK stuff and are really egotistical about it as well. So they're not very nice. So I just do not converse with these people. You get them in all walks of life and you get them in all professions, but to feel that you are unworthy or anything because you happen to be a sports therapist, no, don't do that. You've got skill. You've got very good skill. And you've got a skill now that a lot of people are trying to question in terms of massage and therapy and hands-on and manipulation, all that sort of stuff. The amount of stuff that's going on online regarding, oh, it needs to be evidence-based and we should only do stuff that's evidence-based, and oh, there's no evidence base for it, and so it's all quackery and it's all in people's heads. If that's going to make you then start questioning what you do and your efficacy and whether you're doing stuff that's right and wrong, then take a step back and speak to some of your colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
Get some confidence with it. I am, like you asked before, are you a confident person? Yeah, I am a confident person. Yeah, I've always been a bit feisty. I've always been a bit feisty. But I think that for my profession, for the work that I do, I just think I'm honest. I have integrity, and I have a really big respect for other people within the profession. So I listen more than I speak. And you know, and I don't have an ego. I don't walk around and say, hey, I'm Johnny Big Balls, I'm this, I'm that. No, like, I might work with some really big teams and I might work with, you know, all that kind of stuff. But I've got friends that don't do any of that, and I'd still go to them for treatment because they're fantastic at what they do.
Brilliant. Some great points there, and it echoes things we've heard in the past, and I think it gives a lot of any soft tissue therapist who finds themselves with imposter syndrome and kind of doubts and things. It gives them a good path to get on, and also the future of our profession as well. We had David Rhodes as well from Leicester University just saying, and he's going to be speaking at Therapy Expo. He tweeted, sports therapists stop pretending to be physios. It's like a totally different thing, and you're killing that. You don't even need to be. You know, think of what you want to do. I get so many students who are going on to sports therapy, and they're like, "Oh, I don't know, though. I think I need to be a physio." And it's like, it's a pretty clear decision. I mean, you go to the gym, you like sport, you want to work with athletes, you don't really want to work with anybody else apart from athletes. Why are you considering being a physio again? Because that's kind of like, well, not really. No, you've got the wrong end of the stick, you know.
Yeah. I think that's a problem with the with the sports therapy community. Then, you know, to instill that into your youth and instill that into the new people, the youth by people. I'm not talking about young people. I'm just talking about people that come in and do the degree for a start, and just empowering them to understand that actually we are an autonomous profession. You know, we have a remit, a skill set, we have fundamental rules and regulations that we abide by, and we have a really good skill set that we can be used. Do you know? And like to have a buddy system where, like, if you're unsure, you've got someone to talk to. I think one of the best things that I did was set up a clinic where there's more people than me. You know, working on your own is really lonely, number one. But number two, you know, you can sometimes pick up bad habits, and you need to be challenged. You need to be challenged so that you can actually question, well, okay, what am I doing? Like, you know, leaving my patient with a red hot lamp on for 20 minutes while I go outside and have a cup of tea and then come back and then turn them over and stretch them. Was that a good move? Do you know, did I do the best I could in that 20 minutes? Did I use that, my time and their money, in the best way? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
These are all clinical practice things. These are all things to do with practice and stuff that I think that sports therapy needs to push. You need to get them to start talking.
Definitely, yeah. Working in a multidisciplinary team, I was fortunate enough to go into that from years ago. There was a physio, and I remember starting off in the early days, kind of taking all my patients to the physio. Oh, but this is happening. Surely you're going to fix it. And the number of times you just sent it back saying, "You're doing everything I would do. Stop sending me people. Okay, it's not an issue. Just trust in it. Do your special tests, ruling out the red flags, and then proceed as you would normally do. Stop sending me." And it's only through that eventually you stop sending, and then you stop sending them to other people. And I had osteopaths there as well, and podiatrists, but yeah, like you say, people working by themselves, which a lot of these people are, with a room. They don't have that. They're just left by themselves and feel the weight of the world on their shoulders.
Yeah, and then they get bloody social media as well. They get now, which is the Twitter fights and all that sort of stuff to read, and all the stuff that we see about people questioning all aspects of therapy. Like, you know, like now it's like, oh, you know, actually don't do anything, just give people exercise. And I'm like, but that's what an SSC coach does. That's what I would send my patient to once I think I've got them to a place where I think that they're happy to load their tissue.
Great stuff. All right, people, don't forget, if you're listening on YouTube or you are in the Sports Therapy Association Facebook page, feel free to ask questions. We got a comment here from, pardon me for my pronunciation, it's not very good, but I'm going to say Navinu Mataru, maybe. Watching this from Africa, what a gem of a guy. What a fab osteopath he is. So humble and honest. Not anymore. He's not. Inspiring to hear him. Thanks, Nav.
Honestly, I don't know Nav at all. I don't know you. Oh, thank you so much. That's such a nice comment.
You telling me that you know Nav?
I know Nav. Nav is a fantastic human as well. She runs the Divinity Foundation in Kenya, which is a not-for-profit charity that takes care of homeless girls and girls that have been abused with FGM. She's also an osteopath and has a background in soft tissue. So she does work out in Kenya and she must have seen my post on Instagram or something like that. And so she's come up, and that's amazing because in Kenya it must be late now. Thanks.
It must be. Yeah, I'm thinking that.
Thanks,
Nav.
So if any sports therapists, I'm gonna put this out there now. If any sports therapists ever want to go to Kenya, to what Vinu does, she puts on medical camps where they go out into the bush and they spend a few days out there doing basic medical testing and basic medical examinations and treatment on the tribes that are out there in Kenya. So like, you got the Maasai, you've got other tribes. She takes a whole host of like doctors, osteos, but I'm sure if anybody from the Sports Therapy Association wanted to get involved with that and get out there and do a bit of charity work, and you know what, it's really good learning as well. You can do that by contacting her on, it probably would be under the Divinity Foundation. So yeah, just look for her.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for joining us again, Nav. And thank you. I'm probably going to kind of trap you now and trying to get you as a guest on the show. Now you've shown your face, so watch out. I'm going to be on your case now. But no, it sounds amazing. And as someone who's been, I was in Nairobi and it was amazing and dismissed so many preconceptions I had about Africa thanks to Live Aid and stuff and all the kind of songs. Amazing place.
It's hidden. It's all done on purpose. Like, we're really poor and it's really bad. Don't come to Africa. It's done on purpose so that everybody else can invest there.
That was an amazing place. So thanks, Nav. Yeah, good to see you. What else we got here? I'm just going to make sure I don't miss people here. Seamus, thanks for joining us from Ireland as well. Benjamin Mace, crazy. I haven't got a new camera, mate. It's just I put a bit of makeup on. You said you thought I should try that makeup you sent me in the post. That's all I've got. A bit of eyeliner and foundation that you sent me. So thanks, Benjamin, for that. Seems to be working. Other people celebrating Great Point, Poora, Brian Huxley. Okay, let's go to some questions if that's all right with you. So Daniel Gerber, I haven't read this yet, but I know Daniel's going to ask some great questions. At the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow, physio, sports therapists and masseurs were wanted. No place for osteos or chiros. I should tell you that Daniel is a no osteopath at the moment for various reasons.
Is it what? Sorry?
He's a no osteo. He was an osteopath.
Okay.
But he's one of these osteopaths who's kind of moved away because he felt that he wasn't being represented by the kind of osteopath regulating people and wanted to kind of go and do the same thing, which is quite similar. You know, Chris Kitson? Probably know Chris, don't you? You know, Chris works with Mike quite a lot. Works down at movement therapy in Harborne as well.
Okay, yeah.
He's osteopath as well.
Right, okay.
There's a few osteopaths we've talked to on the show who are like, just, we're talking off air about regulation. They felt that being regulated didn't help them. That they were paying a lot of money and that the organization at the top was not actually representing them in various things. But anyway, I digress. And Daniel, I'll probably
Okay. Let me catch that point. I think that's across the board in all medical professions. I speak to a doctor about the GMC, he'll say the same thing. Speak to a dentist about the GDC, they say the same thing. I'll say the same thing about the GOSC. Like, we get emails regularly from them telling them about what they're doing in terms of regulation, but we get nothing else. And what they are there for is to protect the public. So they're there in case one of us does something wrong, the public can go to them to then have a go at us. That's in a nutshell what it is. I think I spoke to Daniel once, Scottish guy.
I don't think he's actually Scottish. He lives there, but I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah. And I think there's a point that I've got to make. At the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow, physio, sports therapists and masseurs were wanted. So that, when you go to somewhere like the Commonwealth Games, the commies, internationals, all that kind of stuff, most of the medical people that are provided there are provided by the EIS, so the English Institute of Sport. And the EIS have a remit in terms of like what they will provide. And they notoriously are very much physio, doctor, sports masseur kind of led. They don't have chiros and osteos. they do have polyclinics at these places. So the Commonwealth Games will have had a polyclinic. The Commonwealth Games in Birmingham next year will have a polyclinic. And you just need to keep an eye out when these polyclinics are advertising for that. Yeah, I thought so. I thought we had spoken. I think you just have to wait for these things to be advertised. And then when they're advertised, just put your application in. Now, I know previously that how I've been involved is that I've worked with a sport within the games. So I worked with British Athletics. So I was employed by British Athletics. I was taken to the games by British Athletics, not by the Olympic Committee. They're separate entities. So you could work for British Cycling and go to the Olympics as the British Cycling Osteo or the British Cycling Sports Therapist. But when you get out there, there's also a polyclinic which is open to everybody else in the world. Everybody else is you can go there. Like when I went to the Olympics, I was one of the only osteos there. There were other osteos in the polyclinic. There was the guy from the Osteopathic Sports Care Association. I can't remember his name now. Why have I lost his name for a second? Nice chap. He was there representing osteos within the polyclinic, and he was employed by the Olympic Committee. Now, that's not an employment. You're going to do that for free. You do that off your own back, and you'll probably get a T-shirt out of it. Whereas I went as part of a medical team for a sport, so I had my own contract with them. I was employed by them. I was paid by them. So that's why, when I said that I kind of connected with athletics, I went to the track, I connected with the coaches because I had an interest in it. I wanted to know how these humans move at this speed. How do they get that fast and not break? And through those conversations, I started seeing a lot of athletes, and then I got in touch with coaches, and then coaches got in touch with club managers and obviously GB managers and said, hey, look, my team, my sprinters work with this therapist. We need him involved on the program. The doctors then phoned me and said, hi, we don't normally work with osteos, but we've heard good things. Do you want to come in and have a chat to us? Then I went in, and there were like 6 physios there, 2 doctors and me. And so what can an osteo do that? That's it, Simeon Milton. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Tim. Who's also spent time in Tokyo. Tim, you're going to be coming here as well. I don't think you've got away without coming and speaking to us. So we'll be catching you soon.
So what can you offer us, and what can you do that we don't already do? Because obviously physios do post-grad manipulation, and they saw at the time was osteopathy just manipulation. We had a nice chat at the warm-up track in Tokyo. Oh, brilliant. Yes, I remember you now. I see the picture.
Sorted. We have my patients, yeah.
All right, fantastic, Tim. So like the having the chat to these guys, and they say, well, actually, this is what I can do, this is what I offer. But I tell you what, instead of telling you what I offer, how about you watch me treat? And then maybe if you want, how about one of you have a treatment? And then you can see what I do. You can feel what I do. And I think that's one of the best ways of kind of getting involved. And that's what happened with athletics. And that's it just snowballed, and now I'm with it. I'm still the honorary VP of Birchwood Harriers. For the last 10 years, I've been the honorary vice president of Birchwood Harriers Athletics Club. And the clinic provides treatment for all their juniors. So all my juniors that work for me do the work with the junior athletes. So they learn with the athlete, they grow with the athlete. So this year we had one of our 200-meter sprinters, GB girl, who went to the Olympics, did really, really well. That was 7 years worth of work that Amo had done with her as her primary therapist. Any injury, any nickel, he dealt with her from Achilles to hamstring to back to shoulder. He did everything. And then she went off to the Olympics, and I was there anyway. So he gave me a handover. I kept an eye on her. I saw her a couple of times over there, kept an eye on her, and that was it. So it's like it's a journey you go on with your athletes, and I think that's what I like the most is the journey, the story. I like the kind of being part of that. You're never going to be the guy on the podium, right? So there's another thing that people think that you're involved in elite sport. Oh wow, it's amazing! You work with these big guys. Oh my God, you got to see you got to see like Usain Bolt, and you're working with like Mo Farah and all this sort of stuff. You're never on the podium. You rarely will see them race. You'll be at the warm-up track, as Tim just said. You'll be at the warm-up track. You'll be watching on a screen. Yeah, you'll be cold. You'll be sweaty. You'll be tired. But if they win a medal, you'll cry because you know what the work that they'll have done to get there, and you feel that little bit that you did might have actually made a difference. So you do it for the love of it. you know, and that's I still have that buzz. I still have that buzz now. I mean, I've just finished with athletics now, so I'm just doing like an external consultant role now. And you know, I still see sprinters. I'm seeing a couple tomorrow. I still see all, you know, the throwers. I still see the jumpers, and it's just because you have an appreciation and a love for that sport that you do. You know.
Beautiful. Right, let's so we advertised this about working with elites. One of the things I want to kind of touch upon, if that's all right with you, is from your time working with elites, not everyone's going to get there, and some people don't even want to get there.
Yeah.
But what are some kind of take-home messages that working with elites has helped you in terms of advice given to people working with more recreational athletes and things? Has working with the elites changed how you work with John or Jane, normal everyday person?
Absolutely.
And in what ways?
So you know, when you're working with elite athletes, you always work in a group. So you work in a team. They have a team. They'll have a coach. They'll have a nutritionist. They'll have an S&C coach. They'll have a biomechanist. They'll have a physio. They'll have a doctor. So you have a really good room in which you can throw your opinions, and you know, it is scrutinized and challenged, and then you all come to a really good agreement. And I think that's a really, really good space to be in. It's good to be challenged. It's good to say, well, actually, you know what? I want to go in there and I want to release a hamstring and I want to do this and I want to do that. And someone will say, actually, well, why don't we try doing it this way? And it's always good to be challenged. So in elite, you have that. And you're dealing with also people that I think most people would try to push that, you know, they're genetically better or they have certain genetical traits that make them best. And yeah, there is a little bit of that, but they are just animals in the gym. They have this mindset that is unbelievable to work with. And what you probably take from that is that when you work with like general day-to-day athletes, you know, I give the analogy earlier to you in terms of like, you know, like aiming for the low-hanging fruits, right? So you look at what they're doing, you look at their training, you look at their recoveries, you look at what their plans are, you look at what they've been doing, and then you say, well, actually, what could you have done better? Let's go for those things that are easily attainable first. So do you foam roll every day? Do you drink water every day? Do you eat the right sort of protein? Do you do any sort of S&C? Do you do some strength loading? Do you do like max rep stuff? Do you do the kind of stuff that would test your tissue in the way that you need to be tested? And if they're saying no to all of this, and yet they're looking at getting the hyperbaric chamber and they're looking at getting some bloods done and then going for a DEXA and all that sort of stuff, you have to just hit them around the head and say, well, actually, hold on, let's stop you there and let's bring you back down. First, take this one here, which is basically, I'd like you to have 8 hours sleep a day. There we go. First thing, get off the PlayStation and have 8 hours sleep a day. There's your first thing for about recovery. Then, right now, let's talk about hydration and why you've got this Achilles issue, right? So you go for the low-hanging fruits first. Brilliant. Then you put your interventions in. So you put your hands-on. I like hands-on. Hands-on for me is both treatment and diagnostic. So I like to examine stuff because it gives me a feel for what the tissue is like. You know, what does this tissue feel like? Does this, you know, is there compliance in it? Does it move well? Is there range in this joint? You know, why could this glute be hurting? Is it because the hip doesn't work well? Or is it because they've overloaded their back because they did too many overhead presses? Or, you know, there's so many things that could be done, and answers that. It gives you some more information to answer that question. And so I love hands-on for that. And obviously I'm a very big advocate for hands-on and performance therapy and hands-on therapy and manual therapy. I think it's a brilliant technique, and I think it, you know, it's always going to be there. It's always going to be there. We still don't know, and people would argue that we don't know. There's no evidence for it, and you know, this, that, and all that sort of stuff. And you know, I'm not an academic, and I'll let the academics do what the academics do, and I will be guided by what they do and what they see. But you know, I'll also be guided by what my athlete says. And if my athlete comes back and says, you know, Poora, yesterday, you know, when you went through my back and, you know, we did some stretching, you manipulated. Well, I got this morning, there was no pain. And I actually did a run this morning and there was nothing there. And I felt really, really good for it. Do I know the mechanisms by what I did? Well, I have this thought in my head of potentially what I did. And does that coincide with the evidence? Yeah, maybe not. But the next time that athlete wants me to do that again, the day before a race, am I then going to challenge them and say, well, actually, the evidence says No, I'm not. Because you're in elite sport, you don't do that. You do what your skill set is.
Right, there's a few things there. I want to go back to when you first said working with other individuals, you get to challenge yourself, you get to talk through cases with other professionals, you get used to knowing maybe where your boundaries are and handing things over to other people. What advice then? I mean, you've got a multidisciplinary clinic in Edgbaston, so how could therapists who maybe are working by themselves create that, like maybe have that referral system with other individuals who live in their same kind of town? How could they do that? What advice would you give them to recreate that benefit of being challenged?
Talk,
That's a good
talk.
answer.
Yeah, talk. Like phone up. If you get a patient that you can't fix, and you're like, you know what, I don't know what's going on here. Either ring another ST in the town. I'd start with my own profession first, or ring a physio, or ring an osteo, or ring an S&C coach, and say, "Hi, this is who I am. This is what I've done, and I want to refer this patient somewhere where they could get a second opinion and a little bit more information, so that maybe it could guide me on what I could be doing right, correct." Any good practitioner in their right mind, any doctor will be so pleased to hear that. That actually this person is being critical of their work. They're being open and honest, and they've got the best intentions of the patient at heart. And that is it. I don't care if it's a physio, I don't care if it's a chiro, I don't care what the name of the profession is. If you've got a skill set and I can't do what you do, and I need an answer from this patient, guess what? I'm sending it to you.
What about when you say talk, does that include starting a post on social media and getting help that way? Or do you think
Yeah,
that's
I mean that's what I use it for. Like, if I've got a patient that texts me from Southampton and says, "Hey, I want to come and have a session," the first thing I say, I've got people that have texted me from, where's the furthest, like Portugal, Israel, to say, "Hey, I've seen a video you did on YouTube, on Instagram, cracking someone's neck. I want to have a session." I'm like, well, find someone in your own area.
Yeah.
Just there's no need to come and see me. You don't have to fly so far and do all the expense. Find someone in your own area, and if you don't get a good experience, then come back to me, and then I'll challenge that person that you went to see, and say, "Well, what did you do that didn't work on this patient?" And by challenge, that it's not a fight, right? I'm there. Like, ultimately, your patient care and your patient management and handling is primary. It's number one. Do you know what I mean? They've come to you for help, so you are there to help them. So you don't there are obviously, there's bad eggs in every profession, right? There's guys out there that every therapist knows of, this therapist or this therapist that sees their patient 25 times, sells them 20 sessions for the price, 25 sessions for the price of 20, and they go in there for half an hour and they get DP put on them and they get, I don't know, some magical balm. And then they say, right, we'll see you in 2 days. And then they come back again and they're paying £30 a session for that, right? There's a lot of stories of people like that. And our job, and I really do feel this is me personally as well. It's my job to call it out if it is bad. And I think that's why certain social media personalities come so vocal about bad practice like that, and end up calling out everything within the therapy. And I think it's just to, like I said, to challenge and create dialogue and an open, honest discussion. If you're an osteo or a physio or a chiro who doesn't like to manipulate C-spines, don't do it. Don't do it. But if somebody else chooses to do it, then if you want to argue and say that they're being going against evidence and being dangerous as practitioners, I think that's a bit of a big jump. I think that's a really big jump here. So, we could argue about evidence all day long.
I mean, the STA since COVID, we've talked about this a few times, but COVID, one of the good things we've seen out of COVID, along with all the tragedy and misfortune, is therapists are talking to each other more. We've chatted about this because therapists want to know about, what they're supposed to be weighing. Are they allowed to do this yet? How what you're using to do this and that. So it's allowed therapists to not see the person down the road as the competition, but see them as somebody who could advise them. And hopefully we'll keep that now as the virus becomes less on everyone's mind. People will still keep talking. So, but there is still a danger, isn't there? Particularly, I think, in sports massage therapy and sports therapy, of just putting it on Facebook or in general, because you do get so many people who just shout out, well, this worked for me, and it's all very anecdotal. And I understand what you're saying about don't let the evidence kind of close your mind to everything, but particularly in our profession, we have got to be careful, because a lot of therapists just don't even think about critically analyzing what they've done, or whether that mechanism of action can possibly happen, or whether they have to kind of think it through a little bit. So, but in the STA, hopefully,
sorry,
that's
so
good.
to jump in. I think that those people then need to first ask themselves, are they qualified to read research and go through and critically analyze it? Because if you're not, then you need to learn how to do that. Because if you're going to I made the big mistake of reading the conclusion of a study once and quoting that in an argument. And I quoted it to with a really good friend of mine, Paula Deacon, who's a band 8 physio, like runs an NHS department. And I quoted the conclusion, and I was like, boom. And then she basically quoted me some of the findings from within the study and said, actually, the study was pretty crap, Poora, and like, you shouldn't be quoting that. And I felt like this small, but I was like, you know what? Like, we had a big hug and a laugh and a joke about it after, but it was my day for education that day. It was like, wow, she's right. I should have actually read the whole paper and made my decision up about that paper. And if I wasn't sure about the statistics, learn about that. But I'm not an academic. I tend to drift towards where the evidence suggests things work for. There's lots of evidence out there now that says manipulation doesn't work, but the evidence isn't, like, I could argue that the evidence isn't very strong, and that the sample sizes are very small, and there's so many holes within the research that I could pinpoint to say, well, actually, no, it's not, no, it's not, no, it's not, no, it's not. I could do that nitpick and make it say what I want it to say. But what I choose to do instead is, okay, so that's saying that it doesn't affect that. So maybe there's something that I'm doing that could be that could be affecting it. What is it that I do that makes the patient better, but somebody in another clinic does the same technique and it didn't work on them? Does it change what I do as an osteopath? Not massively. I'm much more into the S&C. 100% more into S&C now. Every patient that walks in there, we do a strength assessment on them. And we definitely we definitely manifest that strength goes hand in hand with getting you out of pain and getting you better. And there's so many different nuances to strength and power and dynamics that come with that. So we have added that into the clinic, and we've added that into the way that we manage people with disc injuries specifically. Taking away the apprehension of them lifting weights and doing stuff, and say, well, actually, no, your disc's designed for it. We need you doing it. You don't need me to crack your disc back into place, because we don't do that. Right. So we do have language, and we do use those kind of things, but I wouldn't let all of the noise that's on social media. One of my mates actually said it the best way: I'm a treater, not a tweeter.
That's nice. I like that.
I'm a treater, I'm not a tweeter. And I'm the same. I'm on social media, and most of my social media stuff's funny stories about me running around Tokyo with music on and stuff like that. I'm not a big social media guy. I've been told off by my media people and by my internet guys that I should be posting a bit more. But I'm
treating, not a tweeter. I like it.
I'm a treater, not a tweeter.
Right. The second thing, or maybe the third thing, you said, looking at the low-hanging fruit. That's something which you've understood, and where, when you're advising recreational athletes and that, look at the low-hanging fruit. That's a real good one. We talked off air on that. Why is it that people naturally look at the top of the tree? You said something. We said many things very eloquently.
I think people want to be the best that they want to be, right? And they look at like the Mo Farahs, and they look at all of these guys, and they go, wow, what are these guys doing? Oh, I need to do that, and then I'll get better. No, you need to train like for 5 years, like they did before those posts that they put up to show you what they're doing now.
Yeah.
Right. Most people forget these elite athletes didn't happen overnight. You train for 4 years to do an Olympics. You do a 4-year training cycle. A really good analogy I give to footballers that I work with, Premier League footballers, where they're talking about commitment and all this sort of stuff. I'm like, lads, and I've got utmost respect for Premier League football, because a lot of people can't poo-poo it with the amount of money that's involved and all that sort of stuff. But these guys work really hard. They train really hard. They put themselves on the line a lot. But how I come in there is that, well, I've got young athletes that will train 6 days a week for 4 years, with maybe a week off a year, to run for 10 seconds. And when you put it into context, you dedicate 4 years of your life for a 10-second race. That level of commitment, most people aren't ready to put in. And that's what elite is. Elite is leaving home, leaving your friends, going to another country, living in a crappy little flat where you've just got a bed, a table and a chair and a lamp, earning £12,000 a year, just about scraping by so that you can then race in Olympics in 4 years. That's elite. And training like every single day. Everything's about training. Your life is around training. So when people come in and then talk to me about, oh, you know what, I want to do this and I want to do that and I want these trainers and I want that. I'm like, let's talk about food. Let's talk
about fruit. It's brilliant.
Let's talk about food. Let's talk about fruit. Let's talk about food. Let's talk about training. Let's talk about, when was the last time you did a recovery session? Do you know? So it's about that. It's about education, more time. And then treating them and stuff like that. You can tell the difference between an elite athlete. When you treat them, you can tell the difference. If you've ever treated an elite level athlete, like a top 10 in the world, when you treat them, you can feel it. You feel the quality of the tissue, you feel the power from them, you feel the strength from them. You just feel that this person's made for what they're actually doing.
Great stuff. Yeah. Right, question here from Becky. Where are we? 5-2. Okay, Becky, great question. Here we go. I'm going to read this out for people listening to the podcast. Becky Carroll asks, have you managed the balance of doing what's right by the individual and their injury whilst responding to the demands of the coach/event? The moles are doing what's right by the individual versus what is expected from the sports coaching team, which is something I think a lot of pitch side physios or sports therapists kind of find themselves in that position.
Yeah, for me, health is primary. That's it. Health is primary. If what the coach is doing is threatening their health or threatening their injury or threatening their tissue or their body, I call it out and I stop it. Because bottom line is, prevention is better than cure, isn't it? If I said to you, you need to take a week off and let this calm down a little bit, and we need to do this and this and this and this, and your coach is going to have to adapt the program for a week, but then we'll bring you back and you'll be able to compete competitively. Or the other option is that you force the session and you split the soleus, you split the calf, you split the hamstring, and then we've got 6 weeks where we're trying to get you back together again. It's always the worst that way.
So in your experience with the elites, is it a thing where once you get to the elites, that the actual coach and they will listen to you saying, look, it's not, I know you want to win this match, you think you're going to lose it with this guy comes off, but that's the most sensible thing to do. Does that happen more easily than the middle clubs or the local clubs where they don't know that to account?
I think it all happens in different sports as well. I think football is still very much about the performance. So they have access to things that they can do with the players that will get them to play for 15. That's why players suddenly they're brought on for he was brought on for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Do and that's the reason why that player is usually carrying an injury, but they know they can load it for 5 minutes without risking him.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Whereas when we're dealing with athletics, dude, you're dealing with people that move at 11 meters a second. There's no second chance. You're dealing with people that will pull a tendon off the bone. They'll produce so much power, they'll break their back, they'll fracture their spine. So you're dealing with serious individuals here. So I would much rather, if they're showing signs of stress in any tissue, I'd say, actually, coach, not today. Pull it. And good
Has
coaches
that caused
listen.
any kind of head-to-heads with anybody in particular?
Yeah.
You
No
just
names.
stick with your confidence.
No names.
But...
You just say, well, the decision's with you. Like the medical, we have said this, and we think that it's not right for you to do this, but the decision's with the athlete, isn't it? It's an individual, isn't it? The athlete says, no, I'll take the risk. I'll do it myself. And if you get it wrong and they survive the session and they're absolutely fine, fantastic. That's great. I got no ego. When it comes to someone's health, I've got absolutely no ego. And I don't mind being wrong. Doesn't bother me in the slightest. Doesn't change doesn't belittle me, doesn't change my personality, doesn't make me feel any less human or any less elite than I think I am. Nope. It doesn't bother. I don't mind being wrong. So I think that's the biggest part about working in elite sport is the best people that I've worked with are the ones that have the most relaxed and ego-less personalities.
Very cool. Okay, last question from M. Turner. You've stimulated M. Says, I'm sorry that you work alone, M, but she says, I'm right in the middle of trying to find an osteopath to refer to locally, but really struggling because I haven't had the experience with one personally. The stress involved with wanting to get referral just right is horrible. It's tricky being a loner. So if there are sports therapists or massage therapists out there who want to kind of network and increase their people they can refer to, how, again, you're just going to say talk, aren't you?
So what I would do is I'd go out onto Twitter and I'd go out onto those sorts of social platforms and just say, hey, I'm looking for an osteopath that works specifically in this sort of field with this sort of patient, that could help with the care that I'm trying to give this patient. And see what they do. Like, you know, I think that Daniel would come back in here and say, well, actually, the General Hospital Council should be the people that should be able to refer that and do that and promote that for us. But they wouldn't say that. They'd say that their role isn't that. The British Osteopathic Association would probably say, yeah, we would do that. And that's our fault, to be fair, that he can work with and hasn't understood what's being done and doesn't believe in magic.
Daniel's replied, yeah, finding an osteopath you can work with and has an understanding of what's being done, doesn't believe in magic. He's quite cynical. Is there still much differentiation in you mentioned like you're not traditional osteopath. There's still quite a lot of traditional osteopaths around.
You know, yeah,
maybe
I think,
can the image of an osteopath the same in chiropractic or
I have osteopaths around me every day, and I think the osteopaths I have around me are of a certain ilk. I've been involved in certain osteopathic groups where osteopaths talk about kind of like energy systems and all that sort of stuff, and I have respect for it. I have an understanding of it and maybe how you choose to work. And these people are still effective. They're still helping patients out there. They're still getting people better from pain and stuff like that. That again, that's allowed. They're allowed to do that. If the patient feels that they're not getting what they want to get from this patient, so if the patient feels that they're not getting anywhere in terms of fitness and stuff, then they can call it out themselves. Going back to what the lady that you brought on earlier was asking.
Yeah.
I think that's a great way of doing it, is put it onto socials and then just see what people say, or just find out where you are and then just put it out there. Say, hey, I'm looking for a good osteopath that works in X in this area, and let the world come back to you and say, yeah, this is the kind of person you want to work with. And if you send it to the osteopath, I'm right in the middle. Oh, okay,
that's Tertius them again. Just brought it up.
Okay.
Yeah, so talking, but again, it boils down to what we started: is having the confidence, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Reach out and just
don't struggle. You said I haven't had experience with referring and doing that sort of stuff. Again, you're a level playing field, then, right? Don't see yourself, oh, I'm a sports therapist and I have to talk up to anyone. No, you don't. You're a sports therapist with really good education, really good understanding, and all right, your experience might not be as great as someone that's worked in sport for 20 years. But that's no reason for you then to feel that I need to do it in a certain way. No, you just write a formal, hey, this is what I'm looking for. And, I think I need help with this. Is there anybody out there that could do that for me? You're growing yourself every single day. Every single day you are growing yourself. And like a lot of this self-perception in terms of therapy and therapists. And I've seen a lot of therapists actually stop working as therapists, just like Daniel has talked about stopping us up. I've seen that happen quite a bit. And I'll say the same to them as I say to everybody else, that if social media is affecting the way that you are feeling about yourself and feeling the way that you want to practice, get off social media. Get off social media, speak to colleagues, speak to friends, and get your mojo back, because you did the degree for a reason. And if you still believe in it and you still believe in your skill and you just need a bit of a refresher, get back into it. Because if your intentions are pure and you're very good at what you do, then that would be a real shame that you didn't use that skill to help people.
I hope that helps them. I'm interested, actually, if we just about got time, what is it that stresses you out most of all? Is it the way you're going to come across, or is it that you're worried getting a therapist who you're not going to be able to work with, or what is it that gives you the most kind of nightmares? I'm interested to hear what your replies to that. In the meantime, there's some comments here. Yeah, Fiona, Dr. Fiona Higgs has said, with your point about learning to read a research paper properly, scientific literacy is like any other literacy. Training can help, but it takes a good bit of reading to get good at critical analysis.
Yeah, 100%.
Cool. M has come back with That only works if you have a big platform to start with. If I tweet, only 3 people will see it.
then do this, Em. Then do this. Write the tweet and then get the STA's Twitter account to then ask the question for you.
There we go. It's a good one. Yeah.
Right.
And I'll do it as well, Em.
And actually, if you're looking for an osteopath, put the tweet out there, tag me in it, I'll retweet it, and I'll say, right, any osteo in this area that's good at this, contact Em. And if Em has a bad experience with you and you end up being a crystal waver, I'm coming to find you.
Crystal wave. There you go, Em. You got the forces with you now. You got the Poora on your side. Can't go wrong.
It's fine. You're good now.
Yeah.
But this is what we're there for, right? So, like, she has a problem, and we've got the abilities to help with that in any way, shape, or form. Why would you not do it?
Exactly. Very nice.
Because at the end of the day, you've got a patient that may be in pain or discomfort, or someone that needs help. That's ultimately what we became therapists for, right?
I think we need a social kind of media group hug now, everybody.
Yeah.
Just put your arms around your computer.
Mate, social media is toxic. I honestly, like, it's. I went through a phase about 3 years ago where I just believed everything that was coming out, and I was thinking, shit. I mean, shall I just stop doing nips, and shall I stop using needles, and shall I stop doing this, and really, really started to affect me, and I was like, no, hold on, no, stop. And then I had a big CPD meeting with my guys and my team, and we all kind of unanimously kind of said, well, actually, no, let's have a big meet with other osteos and other physios and stuff, and it was really eye-opening and refreshing to see the disparity between people and what they thought. So, like, I talk about research, right? So I talk about evidence-based practice, right? So effectively, evidence-based practice should basically encourage you to go down that route and kind of guide you to the way that you should be working. Evidence-based practice is not that, okay, this technique doesn't work, right? So you don't use it. That's not how exactly how your friend there that came up, the doctor that came up and said about literary research and stuff like that. It's not based like that. We all exist in this gray area. So let's say, imagine on this side, you've got evidence-based work, right? That's this technique works on every single patient in every single situation. If everything that did that was in this circle and we were only allowed to do this, and on this side there's a circle where you've got all the other stuff that we have absolutely no evidence for, and it would be poo-pooed by every scientist and all that sort of stuff, right? And you chose where you wanted to sit. I think nearly every therapist on the planet would say, actually, I sit right in the middle. I sit right here, because there's not every single technique. It doesn't work on everyone. There's not one that, like, you think sometimes actually maybe, like those ones, like I said, where sometimes you just hold the joint in the right place for a few seconds and you just wait for a kind of a gentle release to happen. And then the patient says, actually, that feels a little bit better, that does. And you think to yourself, oh my God, what did I do? I have no idea what I just did. Right? It happens to all of us. It happens to everyone. And we exist in this plane where we're using the evidence and we're looking at the academics, and we're looking them for some guidance and some kind of knowledge. But we're not saying that, well, we're only going to do that. Because if I went to a doctor or a surgeon and said, hey, doc, you're only allowed to do that procedure on your patients surgically, that works in every single case to every single patient, how many operations do you think that surgeon's going to do? 0. Because it doesn't work like that. Because, there's the argument N is always 1 and all the rest of it, and there's all that sort of stuff. But I truly believe that, like it should guide you and should give you some knowledge, and you should be able to discuss it openly and challenge and all that sort of stuff. But it shouldn't, like, completely stop. I think massage works. That's why I use it. I think manipulation works, so I use it. Do I still know how it works? No. Am I interested in how it does? Yeah, bloody hell, I would. I would love to know how it works. But am I an academic? Am I interested in doing that research? Not really. That's not my thing.
Excellent. Right, it's 9:06, people. Some lovely comments coming in. People have joined us live. Don't forget, you can always join us live. You haven't got to be an SDA member. Becky Carroll said, thanks so much for a great chat, Matt and Poora. I needed this motivational boost this evening. Well, you got it, Becky. As always, every Tuesday, we're here 8 o'clock on the dot. Glenn Murphy says, really good chat, guys. Thank you very much. What do we got? Shelley Farrow. Thanks for joining us, Shelley. It says, what a lovely guy he is, isn't he? So glad I joined tonight.
Thank you.
And Benjamin, who sent me the cosmetics, what's he had to say? He said, what's Benny Boy said? Many thanks for tonight, Poora. You filled my jellies with the confidence to go forth and carry on the magic with these hands.
Good lad. Good lad, Ben.
Good lad. Good lad.
Good lad. Get yourself a t-shirt and say my hands are magic.
You haven't got t-shirts on your site, have you? I think a big lion or something with Poora or something would be good.
So you know, I'm not allowed to swear, right? But I'm gonna do it anyway, right?
Okay.
In my clinic, I have a statement that I do with everyone, and I've even got one of these little buzzers, right? And it's #no bullshit.
Yeah.
And that's no bullshit between each other, no bullshit to the patient, no bullshit about anything. If you do not know, we need to know straight away. You get 3 sessions to work with this patient. If you change their symptoms and everything's great and they're going in the right direction, it's fantastic. If they're not, then you stop, you come and grab one of the team and say, guys, can you have a look at this for me? And just let's see if we're getting this in the right way. But you do not bullshit anybody, not us, not the patient, nobody. #no bullshit.
Very nice. So there you go. Someone makes t-shirts. If you get an image, a screenshot, and just do #no bullshit underneath. So, Nav's back. Thanks for joining us again, Nav. I don't know. Are you actually in Kenya at the moment? It must be. I don't know what time.
She is. She's in Kenya. She's in Kenya.
There she goes. So Nav says, you instill confidence in your patients about your treatment by having confidence in your treatments. Very true. We know that. The research shows that, doesn't it? Brian Huxley says, brilliant chat this evening. Thanks, Poora and Matt. Thank you for joining us as always. Brian, a regular person here. And and the list goes on. In fact, it's been a good turnout tonight. Poora, you've attracted the masses. Tim Allardyce, who you had that chat with on the track, says great chat, guys. And also Poora is a super hard worker and works long hours. Great therapist. Credit to the profession.
Cheers, Tim. See, a lot of people don't see that. I said to you about elite work. I'll give you a typical day at the Olympics. So we would get up at 6:30, 7. And then basically you shower, change, and then you're straight downstairs, carry your table all the way over to the travel pallet place, grab some food on your way there, and then you catch the coach half an hour to the Olympic Village, to the Olympic Stadium, and then you're there for the morning for the morning session. So you'll have athletes that are doing the morning session, athletes that are competing, athletes that are there training. So you take care of them from 8 all the way through to maybe 1 o'clock. So you'll do maybe 8 sessions, 9 sessions, and that's in the heat, in a tent. You know, like there's it's not whistles and bells. And then about 1 o'clock, this was the first time I saw this happen actually. In Tokyo, it got so hot that they actually closed the track for 2 hours in the afternoons. It was like 39 degrees, so they closed the track. So literally, you jump back on the bus. It's a half an hour bus journey back. You get back. You stop, you eat, you go back to your room, you shower, you change because you're sweating, you're stinky. You get about 15 minutes to sit down, have a cup of tea, and then you're back out, back on the bus, back to there. And then you're there from about 3 in the afternoon till 11 at night. And you're working all the way through. And then you get on the bus at 11 o'clock, you get back to the village, you eat at about midnight, and then you have a wash, you go to sleep, you get up at 6:30 again. I averaged about 26,000 steps a day for about 11 days straight. I lost 7 kilos body weight at Tokyo, and that's the kind of extent of work that you're supposed to do. It's a massive mind issue. That it's massive. You don't speak to your family a lot. You don't. You know, you're on 24 hours a day. You're working all day long. It's one of the most stressful things you will ever do is work at a champs like that. But you know, it's all
it goes well there. Like you said, did you have a cry? Did you have reason to cry?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I had a cry in Rio. Tokyo was fantastic. I had a great time. Rio was really tough. Rio was really, really hard. We had lots of issues in Rio, and it was almost 4 weeks I was out there. And I've got a young family, and I've got a wife, and you know, and the internet connection was shit. It was really tough. And you end up speaking to the psychologist. You know, like all the best people in the world and all the best athletes in the world, you have a psychologist because guess what? That's elite performance. It's not a weakness.
Great stuff, Poora. Thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to listening to back to this myself on the podcast. There's so much there for people. Thanks for joining us live as well, everybody who's in the house on YouTube.
Thanks,
and on in the Facebook page. Before we say goodbye, then just to let you know that next week, if you listen to this on the podcast, then next week, which will be the 19th of October, we're going to speak to Raphael Bender, all the way from Melbourne, Australia, who's principal trainer for Breathe Education, delivering evidence-based Pilates courses, which I'm really interested in.
Fantastic.
Again, a lot of misconceptions about Pilates. So he's going to set the record straight. There we go.
Brilliant
We've got
stuff.
The Singh sign of approval.
It's brilliant stuff.
So yeah, looking forward to that. So yeah, if you want to join us live for that, if you're listening to the podcast, you fancy joining us with the great group of people who we have in here to share and network and stuff, then you can head to the Facebook page, Sports Therapy Association, or just hang out on YouTube and you'll find us there at the channel as well, and you can join live there. Right, Poora, thanks so much. If people want to contact you, then what's the best way? Where are you most?
At the Edgbaston Performance Clinic on Instagram, or at Poora Singh on Instagram, and at Poora Singh on Twitter. That's it.
Fantastic.
Poora Singh is just me personal, but then the at Edgbaston one, that's where we put stuff from what we're doing in terms of the clinic and stuff like that. And brilliant. I run a course with Mike sometimes, like an elite therapy course that we did there, and it's basically a couple of days of trackside performance therapy, like manual hands-on technique that you use for every joint periphery and stuff, and how we do it with it in elite athletics and stuff like that. How to get someone kind of race ready. We do that as well. We might be running one at the beginning of next year, I think.
Oh, fantastic. And all that goes on Mike's website, is it?
Yeah, that's all on Mike's website, and that's all. It's all done with the STA as well, so the STA will be advertising it and stuff. And like I'm a massive advocate of sports therapists, man. I focus a lot of my attention on that because I think it's a great profession and it's really young, and it's you know, in 5 to 10 years, like, okay, I went to Everton today, and Everton have a sports therapist. Mm-hmm. I'm going to Aston Villa on a Friday. They have a sports therapist. All right. So anyone who's questioning being a sports therapist, you know what? Stick with it. Like, sports therapy is going places, and you guys just need to keep pushing the boundaries.
There we go. I'll edit the video to cut out there with the music coming in the background, because I think it'd be better than my voice saying goodnight. But yeah, great, Poora. Thanks so much for the time, mate. Really appreciate it. Stick around and I'll say goodbye personally. But everyone who's joined us, come back next Tuesday if you can. Otherwise, listen to us on the podcast. Take care, all. We'll speak to you soon.